Today, we're going to be discussing Katakuri versus King, and how a fight between the two of them would go. Both are vice captains to their respective Yonko, and both are beasts in their own right. But let's look how these guys are faring against one another. First off, I want to say that King should just flat out be more powerful. I feel like there's too much evidence to say otherwise, even in the most simplistic way of scaling it. You could say that the form of Zoro King was fighting should be quite a bit stronger than the form of Luffy that Katakuri was fighting. However, a fight isn't all about who's more powerful. You need to factor in how a person's arsenal and abilities work on each other. And that's exactly what we'll be doing in this video, talking about and brainstorming some ways that our favourite sweet commander could get some W's. Because we all know how powerful King is and why he should be winning this fight on the surface. But I do think our jelly bean throwing, donut loving, total badass Katakuri can surprise a lot of you and perhaps even get the better of the untouchable Lunarian. Now, let's actually look at some of Katakuri's challenges in this fight by going over King's main and most dangerous attacks. He has the Imperial Archer technique, the Imperial Flaming Wings, the extra large Imperial Flaming Wings, I wonder how long it took him to come up with that name, and the Tempura. Now, an underrated advantage King might have here in this fight is actually his ability to summon fire from his Lunarian ancestry. It's hard to tell exactly how Mochi would react to fire, but King's strongest fire attack, the extra large flaming wings, is said to be as hot as magma, so I reckon this would be melting through any of Katakuri's Mochi. And this is important because one of Katakuri's best win cons here would be to use his flowing Mochi to turn all of his surroundings into Mochi to deal with King's mobility and his ability to fly. By attacking from every direction, Katakuri could potentially overwhelm King with it and try to suffocate him with it. Suffocation being potentially one of the few ways Katakuri could negate King's durability. Very similar to what he did to Luffy on Whole Cake Island when he brought all that Mochi down and suffocated Luffy. However, thanks to King's fire manipulation, if he activated the extra large flaming wings and summoned that dragon, then that's definitely burning all the way through Katakuri's Mochi. You could potentially argue that the weaker version could even be enough to get King out of it, but for now we'll give Katakuri the benefit of the doubt and say King would need to use the extra large version of that dragon. Now, I will discuss King's tempura ability, but I'll do that a little bit later on in the video. Now, we all know King's winning in durability, but something I do want to bring up, and it's something I surprisingly don't hear too many people talk about, it's Katakuri's great endurance. This man seriously gets slept on in this regard. The dude's back never even touches the floor in any fight he's had up until Luffy. He's so freaking resilient that he springs himself back up with the freaking back of his head. Not only that, but he fought Luffy for 12 hours. Even more, he tanked massive Gear 4th Bound Man and Snake Man attacks, which is just an amazing feat. Bound Man, even before King Kong Gun, was pushing Dofi to the limit after only a few attacks. But Katakuri was able to push through it and take an absolute bunch of them, which are points in Katakuri's favour because it means even if King gets through his future sight, Katakuri probably isn't just getting one-shotted. The two attacks that would potentially be taking Katakuri out is, like we mentioned, the giant Imperial Flaming Wing Dragon and the Tempura Udon attack. Now, while the dragon isn't slow, I reckon Katakuri would be fast enough to be able to dodge it, unless he was previously stunned somehow by King. Now, King's Tempura technique is a different matter, despite how ridiculous it looks. It's an insane attack. And according to Zoro, can't be blocked and has tremendous speeds, being described as a beam, which often translates to light speeds. Now, if you're familiar at all with scaling One Piece characters, then a certain way you can scale them is to be massively faster than light. But despite that, whenever Oda drops words that imply light speed, speed, I think we can all decipher that the attack is incredibly fast, up there with the fastest attacks in the series. I feel like the speed of the attack is enough to bypass Katakuri's future sight, which is a big problem for Katakuri. Honestly, I feel like this attack does serious damage to Katakuri. If it doesn't kill him straight out, then it injures him enough for King to come down with a magma dragon to finish him off. Now, if Katakuri can't guarantee that he can dodge their tempura strike or block it, then the only way he'd be able to save himself here is by closing King in a confined space, potentially with his flowing mochi, because the tempura attack needs a little bit of range to be able to use efficiently. So if he could get King up close and personal and restrict him in terms of his mobility, then he could seriously affect the power of the Tempuradon. Actually, there is a second option, and that's for Katakuri to use his future sight to see beforehand what King's going to do and then attack him while he's charging it up. Now, that is probably the better way for Katakuri to stop it, but I do think the flowing mochi plan could be a plan B if all else fails. Now, before I get on to Katakuri's best win con, I'll quickly touch on their weapons and haki. King's ability to take away Katakuri's weapon isn't that big of a deal. While it's a loss to Katakuri's arsenal, it doesn't affect his overall strength too much. Now, King igniting his sword here could prove very useful for attempting to cut apart the flowing mochi, but it is a risk because if he can't cut through all of them completely, then the stickiness of the mochi will attach to the sword and Katakuri will be able to disarm King. Either way, I don't think their weapons will affect the outcome too differently. Now, I'm going to say something controversial here. I think that Katakuri has better haki than King in all three types of haki. Obviously, in observation, Katakuri has one of the best observation hakis in the series. And considering we haven't seen King use any Conqueror's haki yet, Katakuri gets the win there as well. But I even think that Katakuri takes the win in armament. Now, yes, King did fight Zoro and was able to clash with him, but the sheer way that Katakuri was able to overpower Luffy with his haki was pretty insane. Even just clashing with him was injuring Luffy's arms. And I don't think we've ever really seen that before in the series. Now, I could be wrong on that one, so definitely correct me in the comments if I am. Now, if you don't think that Katakuri's base armament haki is enough, then I would definitely say when he's using his power mochi, he's using greater armament haki than King. Now, for all you King fans, don't start turning off yet, because in this fight, even though Katakuri would, in my opinion, possess greater armament and obviously Conqueror's haki, I still don't think it would prove too much of a difference because I still don't think it would be powerful enough to get through King's durability. Now, let's bring up that elephant in the room and talk about Katakuri's biggest downside in this fight, and it's King's massive durability. King's durability is relative to Kaido's base durability to lowball him, which is pretty insane. Katakuri's strongest attack is the Buzz Cut Mochi, and I would probably argue that it wouldn't be strong enough to damage King when he has his flames on. Now, if these two were to fight later on in the series, then I definitely reckon Katakuri would be a lot stronger from his clash with Luffy, and I would potentially be able to see him being able to injure the Stoic King. But for right now, that's just a hypothetical power increase that isn't quantifiable. Now, how can Katakuri beat King if he can't even injure him? Well, I'll tell you. I think Katakuri's biggest win con and best win con here all revolves around whether or not you think Katakuri is faster than the Flame on King. And honestly, I find it a bit impossible to say for sure, because we don't know how Snake Man compares to the current Zoro in the story when it comes to speed. Katakuri doesn't even necessarily need to be faster than King though. He just needs to be fast enough that he can activate his advanced observation haki, known as Future Sight, so he can transform his body into Mochi to dodge King's physical attacks, putting them in a stalemate between evasion and durability. Now, if Katakuri can utilize his observation haki, then King would be forced to turn his flames off to increase his speed. Now, that added speed comes with the disadvantage of having his durability lowered, meaning it would give Katakuri the chance to be able to land a decisive hit and win the fight. Now, of course, there is issues with this. The speed amp for King might be enough to just overwhelm Katakuri. That's definitely a possibility. But Katakuri can activate his flowing mochi. Even though it wouldn't stop King, it could potentially slow him down enough for Katakuri to hit him with a burning mochi or a buzz cut mochi. And I reckon while King has his flames off, Katakuri has enough firepower to take him down, if not fully, then enough to finish him off with a second attack. But that's pretty much going to wrap this video up. As you've seen, I do think Katakuri does have ways to win, but like a lot of you, if I had to have an official answer, it would all go to King. Now, this video was really fun to make, and I thought it was a great way to introduce these two total badasses onto the channel. But if you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave down in the comments who you guys think would win. But for right now, I've been Jack Cypher, Cypher out.